Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you for this very special panel. It's a very specific topic, but one that really deserves some attention. So we're really excited to have you here today. If you are new to Bright Spot, we want you to know that we are a community for parents who were diagnosed with cancer while pregnant or raising young children. And we support parents with any cancer diagnosis, any stage, living anywhere in the United States. And we also support partners and children as well. The idea is that we want to create community for parents to help reduce isolation, increase connectivity and community, and empower parents with the resources they need to parent through a cancer diagnosis. We do that through many different programs. Some of our foundational programs include our free Bright Reads program, where we send parents two free books about cancer, big feelings, grief, and loss. We have a connective activity, Bright Box, where we send parents all of the supplies they need to engage in a few different crafts, even if they're parenting from the couch. We have a financial grant, many different virtual support groups for parents who are in active treatment, early survivorship, parents who are post-treatment, parents who have a stage 4 diagnosis, for partners, bereaved partners, and parents of color. We also offer connections for kids. So we have a monthly group, Bright Circle and Bright Club. We also do different exchanges throughout the year. We have a virtual teddy bear clinic and a few different fun activities that pop up throughout the year. We have many different webinars and workshops. I have a few to share in just a moment. We offer resource navigation and a wealth of web resources that are all free and downloadable on our website. You can follow us on Instagram. We would love for you to connect with us and stay up to date on our programs, resources. We've got some new ones launching this spring, so stay tuned. Our next Parenting with Cancer webinar is April 22nd. We have Meredith Camarada coming to talk about the sandwich generation. So for those of you who are starting to offer a little bit more support and caregiving to aging parents while also having to parent through cancer, that's a lot. That's a lot on your plate. And so Meredith is going to speak to that and offer some accessible ideas and resources about how to cope. We're also very excited to partner with Triage Cancer to offer this very specific program for parents with metastatic cancer. It includes a webinar series, so you'll see here the different webinars that are being offered. It also includes some different practical guides and materials. You can follow the QR code or just go to our website and you can learn more about this program. We really want to thank our partner for this webinar, Bobby for Change and the Breasties. Allie, do you want to just take a moment to speak through your slides?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Allie Brumel. I'm one of the co-founders of the Breasties. I'm also a triple negative breast cancer survivor and a mom to two little ones who were born after my treatment. First, just a huge thank you to everybody for being here and a big thank you to Bright Spot for bringing this important conversation together. As Chris mentioned, today's panel is in partnership with Bobby for Change and the Breasties. So before I go into who the Breasties are, I just want to quickly share a bit about that work. Bobby is an infant formula company that's focused on providing high quality organic formula and also supporting modern parents. And together, we've partnered with Bobby and we've created the Bobby Breasties program where we support families navigating cancer during pregnancy, surrogacy, and postpartum by helping them feed their babies. So that looks like a year of free infant formula along with education and community support, which just helps to ease a small piece of an incredibly complex time. And we're just so grateful for Bobby's commitment to showing up for this community. But briefly, want to jump into more about what the Breasties does in case you're not familiar. We're a nonprofit that supports individuals impacted by both breast and gynecologic cancers. And we do that through connection, creating community, education, and advocacy work. And we offer a range of programs. If you go to the next slide, there's a lot of information about all of our programs. I won't go through everything, but we do have virtual peer-to-peer support groups. We have in-person events like Camp Breasty. We have a free app that helps individuals connect with one another. We have a media platform with trusted educational resources, and we do a lot of advocacy work and have programs similar to our Bobby Breasties program. So definitely check it out. We'll also share some more about these resources in a follow-up email, so feel free to explore and please reach out if we can support you in any way. Please know the community is here for you. And I'll pass it back to you, Carissa. But here's some ways to reach out to us and just excited about this conversation. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Allie. Yeah, this is great. So for those of you who are attending, how to engage in today's webinar. Certainly, if you have a question while the panelists are speaking, you are welcome to enter it into the Q&A. I'm going to hold all the questions until the very end, but if you're like me, it's kind of good to just like get it out while you're thinking about it so you don't forget it. So feel free to shoot me the question whenever you have it. If you want to check the anonymous box, you can do that. We will send a survey in tomorrow's follow-up, but I'll also drop the link in the chat. We really do appreciate you completing these surveys. They're really short. They should only take about 3 minutes. It helps us to know not only what you thought about today's panel, but then ideas that you might have for future panels and webinar. And truly, that's how we crowdsource for ideas for upcoming events. Lastly, we are recording today's webinar parent panel. So if you need to step away for any reason, or if you want to share this with other people, I will send you the recording in tomorrow's follow-up email, and it will eventually go to our website where you can access it at any time. All right. With that being said, I'm excited to turn the mic over to Valeria Palmertree, who is moderating today's panel. So take it away, Valeria.
Thank you. Thank you, Carissa, for having me. And I'm really excited for the conversation we are about to have with these incredibly inspiring panelists. My name is Valeria. I am originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina, currently live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and have been in public relations for a little over 20 years now. I have my own consultancy, and I'm really fortunate to get to do the work that I love every day. 3 years ago, almost coming up here, May 2nd, 2023, I was diagnosed with breast cancer just shy of 10 weeks of pregnancy. It was a very desired pregnancy, my third, but the only one that was kind of moving forward. I had several miscarriages leading up to it. And yeah, I was faced with a breast cancer diagnosis, a lot of uncertainty. I'm on the other side of it now and proud and just thankful to be able to say that my daughter and I went through 8 rounds of chemo together. I completed another 8 rounds after she was born, completed radiation. I did surgery early on in my pregnancy as well before starting chemo. A complication with the surgery left me intubated and in a medical coma for 3 days while carrying her. And we both survived that, which is incredible. She will be 2.5 next month, and looking at her just reminds me of just the enduring spirit of humankind and all of the wonderful things that I am looking forward to live through with her. And I am also a very proud Bobby Breasty recipient of 2023. My daughter and I had the opportunity to have formula for a full year thanks to their fantastic and generous work. So I am really delighted to be here to help spread some hope, but also really humbled to be in the company of these women who have, paved the way before me and will continue to pave the way after me. So I will call on each of them to introduce themselves. I will start with Nadia Walker.
Hey everyone, it's so great to be here. I'm Nadia Walker. I'm based here in Oakland, California, where we currently have the neurovirus spreading through. Through my three girls have had it over the weekend. So I was just saying before the panel started that this sort of is regrounding me in some of the principles that I tried to embrace going through my treatment. I was diagnosed in November 2021. I was 4 months pregnant with my youngest daughter, Maeve, who is now 4. She just celebrated her birthday last week. Can share more about my journey, but yeah, stage 3 IDC with lymph node involvement and in the breast tissue. I went through a year of active treatment, single mastectomy, radiation, 20 rounds of chemo, deep reconstruction, can take any part of it. One thing I believe deeply is you've just got to be in the moment and take each sort of chapter each day at a time, because it can quickly get sort of really overwhelming. I have three girls, and yeah, I'm currently sort of out of active treatment, going through hormone therapy, but about to start a clinical trial that's a 5-year trial with UCSF, where I met Lauren, who's another panelist. We met through a UCSF support group. And I'm a big Bobby fan. I'll just say my friend Sarah co-founded the company, and I wasn't an official breastie, but I did receive many unofficial donations of formula. Um, because I couldn't breastfeed after 2 weeks, and that was in addition to sourcing donor milk through the East Bay, several communities who were really generous and helped me feed my daughter until she was 6 months old. So I did a combination, but huge fan of the Bobby breasties as well.
Thank you, Nadia. Let's hear from you, Lauren.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Lauren Bruns. I'm here from San Francisco. As Nadia mentioned, we were both in treatment together at UCSF and had the great fortune of being in a support group for young women facing breast cancer. And you could imagine that when you get diagnosed and you're pregnant, you feel like you're on an island. And to have somebody in my city in a support group to lean on was tremendous. Diagnosed almost exactly a year after Nadia, so November 2022. I had a 1.5-year-old who I was nursing and had a bout of mastitis that really didn't resolve. And through a very prolonged investigation period, eventually got in for a mammogram. And at the same point in time, between the appointment getting scheduled and actually showing up for the appointment, I became pregnant. To many of us, it was similar to many of you, it was a very wanted pregnancy. But to discover so early on at 8 weeks that I was facing breast cancer, it put us through a series of choices that were really tough to consider. But I think, the staff that we worked with at the hospital had experience and kind of put at ease this notion that I could still parent my 1-year-old and carry a baby and treat myself all at the same time. And so, similarly to you, Valeria, I had rounds of chemo, I had surgery, I had an early induction, and my darling girl, who just turned 3 yesterday, was a huge celebration for us. And she's such a great reminder of all the hope that comes with this unfortunate hand. She had a several week stay in the NICU, just continuing to grow and eat. And I think the hospital staff knew the position we were in, starting chemo 10 days after birth, and they were very kind in helping us get our legs under us and taking great care of her in the NICU and bringing her home at the point in which we were all ready for her to come home. So I hope today to share some stories about the kind of support to ask for, the kind of support that can be helpful in this situation, because you certainly cannot do it without a village of support around you. Diagnosis wise, I was stage 1 at diagnosis, but later determined to be stage 2, and went through chemo while pregnant and 12 weeks of chemo after delivery, 25 rounds of radiation, a re-excision from my original surgery while pregnant. And like many of you, I'm still in hormone therapy, 2 years in, and likely another 6 to go. So it is a marathon, and there are many chapters. And like Nadia said, I think being present and focusing on the current chapter really helps you just keep a pace that you can sustain as you're weathering this hand, and ultimately making friends, finding other people in this community that can be there for you, is a really important part of the journey. And the last thing I'll say, I don't know, Nadia, if I've said this to you before, but I'll say it publicly. You were my inspiration for breastfeeding my daughter for the 10 precious days that I had. And I have, phone pictures, and you told me to take videos, which at the time it seems a little silly to take a selfie, but I treasure those memories. And I hope that as panelists, we can all share some of those bright spots in in our journeys to give you all a little inspiration today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Jamie, let's hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Halverson. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm a professor at a small healthcare college. I teach communication classes, and I was diagnosed in July of 2022, and I was 18 weeks pregnant. Um, I was stage one. It was very, very small. It was actually just by luck that we were able to find that I had cancer, but that's a story for another time. Um, but it ended up being because I was pregnant that made all, like many of you probably, my decisions were made for me. It wasn't, do you want a lumpectomy or do you want a mastectomy? It was, nope, you're getting a mastectomy, and on and on. So kind of things were kind of decided for me. So I had a single mastectomy while pregnant and chemo, and then I had a C-section, had a beautiful baby girl, also a NICU stay. Um, but just like I'm sure many of your babies, just a tough fighter. And after she was born, I went through more chemo, another mastectomy, and reconstruction and medication, and on and on. She is 3.5 years old now. She's doing very well. She is our little Spitfire. And I also have a almost 6-year-old son as well. So he was about 2.5 whenever I was diagnosed. Um, I also have a partner, so my husband was there with me as well, and of course, many family members. But that's just a little bit that I'll share now, and then I can share more later. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jamie. And Giselle.
Hi, everybody. My name is Giselle. So I am originally from the Philippines and I moved here when I was 7 years old. I'm currently based in New Jersey. And so we're really liking the warmer weather now since the winter had already left. So for me, I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia when I was 28 weeks pregnant with my daughter. At that time, it was stage 0. So fortunately, I didn't have to go through any chemo or anything like that. But I think the mental and emotional stress really just took on, and not knowing that there's actually support groups available, it would really, really help me. That's why I really try to help others and promote like support programs because I really wish it was there for me. And if some of you remember, well, mostly most of you remember, it was during the pandemic time. My daughter was actually born in March, and I still remember the announcement from New York that nobody besides the mother can go into the hospital when giving labor. So that was the exact same day that I went into the hospital to get induced, and later on, I gave birth to my daughter through an emergency C-section. So fast forward now, I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer in December 2023. Fortunately, I did achieve remission, but unfortunately, the cancer came back. So now I am going through another set of chemotherapy, and I'm doing a new one on Friday. So just a lot of things that I'm going through personally, but I really want to help advocate for the support groups and the hope and inspire others going through a similar journey, because I really wish that there was something like this for me when I was going through it initially, especially during the pandemic time since everyone was so isolated. So more to come, I guess, based on the in this discussion. And thank you so much for letting me be here and sharing my story with you all.
Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. I also have to say, what a generation of strong little girls we've all brought into the world. All of us have daughters, whether chemo babies or post-cancer babies, in addition to the children you had previously. That just makes me really, really happy. I will kick it off with a big question. Obviously, for many people, pregnancy is such a special time, and we idealize it in so many different ways. And while certainly many medical circumstances can make it difficult, and can provide, can bring challenges into a pregnancy, I think hearing you have cancer has to be one of the most shocking things you can hear on that journey. And so I'm interested in knowing, and I'll ask Jamie, I'll ask you first, how did that cancer diagnosis in the midst of your pregnancy shift that experience for you?
Yeah, I would say in two different ways. First, obviously, it was terrifying. I had never known anybody who had cancer during pregnancy, and having surgery during pregnancy scared me, and then knowing I had to have chemo during pregnancy scared me. It was very terrifying. My thinking was, as long as I can get this little baby girl out of my stomach, I can do anything. That's the only step I cared about. I had also had a miscarriage before this pregnancy. And then also, I knew going into chemotherapy, I knew that a lot of times it makes women infertile. And I got that call several times. Hey, did you want to freeze your eggs? I'm like, that's not an option. I can't do that. I don't know if I would have anyway, but I didn't really even think about it because it wasn't a choice. So that was scary, knowing this was kind of my last chance. And shifting it the other way, also getting this diagnosis gave me the opportunity to just sit and be with the pregnancy because I with everything going on, I was the only one who could take care of her. And it was a really special time for me and her. I felt really, really connected to her. And everybody around me was taking care of me, but I got to take care of her, which was pretty special. So a little good, a little bad.
That resonates with me so much. Lauren, what about you? I imagine fear is also part of that story.
Absolutely. And I think, the cancer diagnosis journey is nonlinear, right? It takes a month or two in many cases where you have enough information and a treatment plan. And I think those initial few weeks where you just don't even know where to focus your energy or how worried to be was particularly challenging. And I think similarly, the idea of just trying to center myself, focus on the baby and the pregnancy, do all the things I did with my first baby, try to eat healthy and rest and nap. Like I just put my energy into that part of my job and really put a lot of trust in the medical team to help me navigate. Um, and I would say, I was really selective in kind of sharing the news because I found that until you had sort of that information to share out, here's the treatment plan or here's the prognosis, it actually kind of brought more stress on me with people asking questions I didn't have answers to. And so I think, on a pregnancy journey where you'd usually be quite excited to share that news, we kept it my husband and I kept it a little closer to the vest until we were in a position where we could share really clearly. And we were really prescriptive in sharing with others what kind of help we needed, right? We set up a meal train. We said, funnel all communication through my husband, right? So I think um, just trying to protect your time and your mental well-being and thinking about what you can put in place in terms of communicating to those loved ones and family members and friends who obviously want to get involved and help, um, but really just trying to like not let that add stress, right? And thinking of ways to to manage that. That was something that was really helpful for us, and I think totally different with that cancer pregnancy versus our first pregnancy, where we were just like, we'll take anything, we'll talk to anyone, right? It was a very different sort of exercise in managing family and friends, but a good one.
I bet. Now, Nadia, you had two little ones at home during your pregnancy and your diagnosis. So what was that experience like for you and sort of not the comparison, but the dichotomy
Yeah.
of those experiences?
Yeah, I think to Lauren's point, it's not a linear journey. You go in so many different directions. Um, like you, Valeria, also work in communications, which, I want to highlight because in the diagnosis phase, I was told you have early stage disease. And I think there's a lot of connotations that come with that. I made an early assumption, this is going to be fine. We're just going to cut it out. It's going to be okay. We're going to move on with life. Um, and, every diagnosis is so unique and so so different. We could have a similar diagnosis, but it doesn't mean our experience of going through treatment is going to be the same. So for me, with my two older girls, who were still very young at the time, I just was very careful to use the word cancer, and so it's hard because I had a biopsy. They could tell things were going on, but I was really fortunate at the time to have a resource where through my employer called Clio, which I think still exists, where I actually got to speak to a parent coach who gave me like a 1 hour training in sort of traumatic language and how to speak to kids. And I know there's probably many more resources available now. Um, I just knew that they would look at me and sort of pick up on my energy. And so I tried with them, especially to just keep it really simple, not use the word cancer until I had more information. And to just take each day at a time. But I think it is so challenging, and the diagnosis piece is just you just have so much coming at you. And I think, give yourself, my advice would be just give yourself some grace to do some processing, to figure out the family members, the friends who are gonna maybe help you manage the different pieces, and then also, who can help with the kids, spending time with them. And everybody needs to explain it in their own sort of way when they're ready. But I do think it's really hard when you have little kids in the mix. You want them to have sort of comfort and understanding, and you can't. For me anyway, I couldn't do that until I made sense of it myself. So in the beginning, I just tried to take the time and say, not feeling well, and I have to do some treatment. But with little kids, you can also keep it, I think, a little more vague than you can with sort of older kids or teens.
Yeah. Now, Giselle, your diagnosis and pregnancy and COVID were all kind of a trifecta, if you will. How was that like navigating that experience over that time that was particularly hard due to the COVID restrictions?
Yeah, so I think if I say stressful, it's an understatement because everything was closed, right? We had our own little bubble, and FaceTime and all these technologies that's available now was not available in the past. So I felt very isolated. My partner then, we were just in our own little bubble. And so what I would have wished is really to be able to know these resources. And I think for me, when I was first diagnosed, through just a blood work, I went to the first doctor. And of course, when I heard it, I'm like, no, that can't be. I cannot be pregnant and have cancer at the same time. Full denial. So I went to another doctor to get a second opinion. They ran through additional tests and they confirmed, yes, you have CLL. Fortunately, it's stage 0. You don't have to have anything right now. You'll be on a watch and monitor treatment program kind of thing, which is good. But at the same time, like they didn't give me all these resources that I would want to have had to learn about the disease, of how it's going to progress, if I'm going to get treatment or whatnot. So I think like one thing that I have shared is always advocate for yourself. If you want to learn about your disease, your diagnosis, definitely ask for it because they do have those pamphlets and resources online and whatnot. But I didn't ask for it because I was just in full shock. So I think with my second diagnosis, for the brain cancer, that's what I did. Like, please give me everything that I need to know and how it's going to progress, and what I need to know to take care of myself going forward. So and when the pandemic hit and it was just fully isolated, I think one thing I also wanted to know is having that support group, to talk with people with similar situations because I was not able to talk to anybody. I had a dog back then, so that was my support group. But other than that, it was just very, very isolating. But now, I have a whole new support system, very, very supportive. My parents, my friends, my colleagues, especially my daughter. She knows about my cancer. She's 6 years old. She just turned 6 last week. So, they're just rooting me on, like making sure that I continue doing with whatever I need to do. So, yeah.
That's great. You brought up something that I think is so important in this journey, and that's advocating for yourself. And obviously, when you're pregnant, for your baby as well. I've learned through my own journey that not every medical team is experienced, right? In this type of high risk pregnancy. in my experience, there was an oncology team, there was an MFM, maternal fetal medicine team, an OBGYN team. But I'd be curious to know what each of your experiences was like. And did you need to advocate for yourself? Did you need to go and get a second opinion? And, paired with the fact that that's adding something else to your plate, right? You become both the patient and the informant and the student, and it can be really overwhelming. But I'm very curious and knowing about each of your respective experiences. And I'll ask Jamie about that first.
Sure. I've learned that my experience, I think, is kind of unique simply because my medical team was amazing. I did not have one complaint about my medical team. Um, it was challenging, don't get me wrong. There were many times where I had to go in between, maybe like in between OB and oncology and ask questions to each other. But they were just incredible. They took care of me, they reassured me. I was overwhelmed with all the information, but I liked to see the research behind things, and they gave that to me. I knew to ask for that. Also, my husband did a lot of advocating for me. So maybe that was part of it too. He is a math person. He wanted to know the statistics. I remember one appointment, him and my oncologist sat there talking to each other, and I did not understand a word they said. It was all data, data, data. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna rest. Like that'll just make him happy. He'll understand it in his way. I'll understand it in my way. But that did show me that everybody understands things and feels comfort in different ways. Um, I felt a lot of comfort through so much of my OB team was just incredible. They're the ones who found my cancer. They were with me through COVID and through my other baby, and that it felt like family to me. So I'll let somebody else share, but I was lucky. I was.
I am so happy to hear that, although it should not be luck, right? It should be the standard. I wish that for every woman and man who has to go through a diagnosis like this. Lauren, I'm curious as to your experience on that front.
I was so early on in my pregnancy that I ended up with a sort of a trifecta of teams, right? I had a fertility consult. What would it look like if I terminated the pregnancy and added cycles to freeze eggs ahead of treatment? I had obviously the oncology and the surgery team, and then the OB team. Um, you've got to have that personal connection with somebody in that team member that you can figure out like who's the quarterback. And for me, I just kind of went into it assuming that oncology was the quarterback. OB was my quarterback. This was the woman who was in the background making all the MyChart messages to all of the different stakeholders, advocating for me. And so I don't think it necessarily has to be the OB, but I think you've got to understand the dynamic of the doctors and just ask them candidly. It was probably halfway through that I figured this out, that she was really the driving force. And then I knew, I want her to be in the loop for I want to ask her the same questions I'm asking my oncologist and have them talk to each other. And so, the other piece I wanted to bring up on this, I did end up doing a second opinion. I went with the Cleveland Clinic because that is where I grew up and where my parents live. And it was really, really hard to be in San Francisco getting treated and be thousands of miles away from my parents and my sister. And so I think considering, that this is going to be a longer term treatment prognosis, like think about where you could plant yourself. You can pick your life up if you need to get to the care. You don't necessarily just have to go with the care that's near you. So we did pretty quickly activate that option of getting a second opinion. They've got like an online portal. I almost went through the MD Anderson process and then quickly decided that was too much to manage. So I just went with one alternative, but it really did help me get that sanity check because like I described that first month or two where you don't know which end is up and what path you're going. It was helpful to get a little bit more data from another organization looking at the same set of inputs, right, to make a recommendation. And it was very comforting when their conclusion came back very much in line with what my care team had. And then the last point I wanted to make, kind of in the spirit of like self-advocacy, I loved, or very early on, my OB said, Lauren, you tell me how often you want to see me. You get to set the cadence, Like, this is not your normal pregnancy plan where you come in for the 12-week and the 20-week scan, and we'll see you at 28 weeks for high risk, fetal monitoring. She said, I'll meet with you every week, every other week. And we went with every 3 weeks and we alternated in person and video. And it was really comforting that I knew I would have that level of touch cadence with somebody in my care team. Um, so they're there to meet you where you're at, and don't ever just be the person who's like, I'll go to the appointments when they schedule them. Like, you can really advocate for yourself. And that's why I say that OB ended up being the quarterback of my care team, because she really empowered me to make those types of decisions and get the care I needed. So thank you.
Thank you. If I may, that resonates with me so deeply because my OB, I had an amazing trifecta of a team, but my OB, while I was intubated, and of course, completely, no consciousness of what was happening, she came every day and did fetal heart monitoring bedside. So
Yeah.
that when I woke up, and inevitably every time I had a stream of consciousness, I would mouth and write out to my husband, "Is Gummy Bear okay?" Which is what I called our now real life Gummy Bear, that he could say with confidence, "Yes, she is."
Yeah.
And I will never, be able to repay her for that. In fact, my daughter sleeps with a little lovey that is named after my OBGYN. So they are real heroes. And I think feeling that comfort, I think, is step one. If you don't feel that comfort, if you don't feel that confidence, if you don't feel that trust, you are the patient. Everyone should be there to serve you. And you do need to advocate for someone who makes you feel that way. I'm curious, Nadia and Giselle, if you've had similar experiences or different experiences in that.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. My experience, I'm so happy to hear of these like really positive experiences where people went above and beyond. My care team really did in their own ways go above and beyond, but I actually felt like I had to be a bit of a project manager in the beginning and communicate between like the OB and the oncology team. And I felt like I had to advocate. My, tumor was found at one institution. We were trying to get it to the other institution. At one point, I was asked maybe if I could go and get my tumor and bring it across the Bay Bridge, which, I share. Now it's funny. I'm like, did that really happen? The tumor made its way. It was fine. I didn't need to carry it across the bridge, but I felt like I had to self-advocate. I remember clearly, I needed to be induced, and my daughter was going to be born in April. I have one in like February, one in March. I was like, yes, one in April. This spread, and I remember my care team saying, "Well, we're going to induce on the 23rd," and I was like, "That's my eldest daughter's birthday. That's not happening." And I managed to sort of push it 3 days. It seems like such a small detail, but I would say, there's your treatment plan, and you should always get two opinions. I think that it never hurts to do that. And there's your level of care, and then there's your support plan. And both are really important. How you navigate the journey of cancer, who your care team is in the home. Are you bringing in like a newborn nanny or a night doula? These things are really important. So I felt like in the beginning, people would say, "Well, what can I do to help?" And I'd be like, I don't, that's like the worst question. I don't know what help I need. Um, so again, back to taking each day at a time. But I just want to underscore there's a lot of agency in how you manage your support plan. The treatment plan is a little different. We leave that up to the doctors. And hope that they, take care of us. But the support plan, it does impact your journey and the agency you feel going through the journey. So it took me a few weeks and months to realize, oh, I can advocate for myself and how I want to be supported and cared for, my family, the support we need. Um, but I hope that helps. I love hearing those anecdotes from other panelists. It's amazing.
Yeah, so for me, I think mine was a little bit different. So because my cancer was stage 0, they didn't take it seriously. They're like, "Oh, you're fine. You don't have to worry about it." And I think for me, it really hurt me as a patient because they minimized my situation. I'm stage 0. I understand that there's other people whose way situation is way worse than me, but at the same time, I'm still a patient. I still have cancer. I still need to be seen. So after I got my second opinion, I actually went to another hematologist oncologist who took me a little bit more seriously because they kept downplaying me and not taking me seriously. So that's where I'm currently staying, getting my treatment now at Robert Wood Johnson Center at the Jack and Morris Cancer Center in New Jersey. So that's where they're really seeing me as a patient rather than a number, which the other organization was seeing me as. So, and I think for me early on when I had the CLL or have the CLL, um, I was managing the communication between my OB and my hem-onc because to them they're like, well, you're stage 0. We don't really have to worry about you right now, and like just worry about your pregnancy. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I need to know when I need to follow up with you, and do I need to do repeat blood test, or what if it progresses as much as it should, or based on what I'm reading on my own. And they kept downplaying me and kind of minimizing me in any way. But yeah, like I was managing those communications and reassurance too. So it was hard. I felt like through all this time, the 6+ years I've had cancer, now 2 malignancies, I've always advocated myself because a lot of people, based on my situations early on, didn't take it seriously. I feel one thing that's very, very important is it doesn't matter if you have stage 0 or stage 4, you have cancer. Like it does not matter. And you're as important as anybody going through surgery, you're going through chemo. Everybody's life matters. So now I have stage 4 ovarian cancer. Now I'm getting all the, you know, communications and everything. Like this is how it should have been in the very, very beginning. But I think that's one thing to definitely advocate for yourself, like regardless of your cancer stage. Definitely let them know that you are important. You have to be seen as a patient rather than as a number.
That is powerful, powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think as women in general, but especially as mothers, it can be really hard for us to one, advocate for ourselves and speak up, but then also to ask for help. I know that I have this complex of like, I can do it all myself. I'm independent, have a wonderful supportive husband, but I feel very like independent. I can take charge. So how did each of you allow yourselves to one, be open to assistance, but then two, to take that step to ask for help? And maybe another way to think about that too is, is there something that either you did or that somebody did for you that was particularly helpful during your journey? And I see Nadia nodding her head, so I'm going to start with you.
It's my favorite question. Well, just because I had such a journey, I think the first few months of going through treatment, I was like, I can do this, very stoic, very British, I can do this, I got this, I'm going to be fine. I've always been independent. And it didn't take long before I was like, this is literally not sustainable. Like, I can't go through treatment. I can't make sure my girls are okay. So I would just say people really want to help. Communities are different sizes, but I think people don't forget that people get such a deep amount of reward from helping and want to help. But that question comes up often like, let me know how I can help because I do not know what to do. So I'm going to give Caring Bridge a little plug because it's a site that I used in the beginning. So you have this period of overwhelm around diagnosis where you have to figure things out. But once you have figured things out, for me, I'm in communications and I stopped, I stopped working. I couldn't, do paid work. But I started to write on Caring Bridge, and I didn't realize it was a vehicle for asking for help. It was more of a journaling practice for me to process what was happening. And I found that people had these really strange assumptions of what it was like to go through treatment. And I wanted to tell a story about that. So I didn't realize it at the time, but for me, the journaling allowed me to sort of control the narrative. And then also over time, because active treatment for me was, a full year, I could then make sense of, oh, you know what I need? I need a series of rides to radiation. If you can come and give me a ride, if you can bring me a little snack, if you can make me laugh on the way over, that's what I need. And I think the more I wrote about it, the more I honed what I need. So I remember radiation because it was 28 consecutive days of driving from Oakland to San Francisco. And it's terrible, but I looked forward to somebody coming, and there was a spreadsheet and different people would sign up. That was something that I look back and think, wow, there was sort of agency. The other quick thing I'll just say is, I did lose my hair, and for me, that was the most visible sign of treatment to my kids. And I said to people, I don't want everyone to be sad about this. I know losing hair can be really sad, but for me, it's not going to be a sad experience. And we set up a hair salon, and I got my kids to kind of do all these different hairstyles before we shaved it off. And, I have a really round head, and a lot of people thought it was a fashion statement. I mean, not, that was a byproduct. I was really surprised. People in the street, like, this is great. And I was like, it's really not, but thanks. So yeah, I'm a big believer that saying you need help is important. And also, if you want to give help, just think about something that you're great at. Maybe you make a good meal, maybe just what is it that you do effortlessly? Just like offer that up to somebody who's going through treatment.
I love that you said that too, because it's really about channeling people's attention on you anyways, and channeling that into the ways that are going to serve you best. I think that's a really powerful reminder. And I cannot believe that we've been almost here for an hour. And there's a very critical question that I want to ask you all. And so, if unless somebody has something to add in the caretaking aspect of this, I would love to jump on to one final question to leave space for Q&A. And that is that obviously a cancer diagnosis in the midst of pregnancy seems unimaginable. It's becoming more and more common. But some of you, I'm struck by the fact that you already had young children coming into this, right? So I'm curious as to how you juggled parenting your child or your children while also navigating the cancer diagnosis and a pregnancy as well.
I'm happy to take this one for a first pass. So, if I kind of think of it in two buckets, right? There was caring for myself and caring for the kids, and we had to come up with a system that enabled both things to happen simultaneously. And being faced with bringing a newborn home and taking care of a then 2-year-old, it quickly became apparent that we wanted to keep the 2-year-old structure as normal as possible, right? And so we prioritized getting him into a preschool and into a rhythm, and having his interactions with the nanny he'd been with, for the previous 18 months stay consistent. So I think, like, within reason, however you could sort of maintain a normal routine and rhythm for the younger ones, they really thrive off of routines, right? And we were able to talk about mommy going to the doctor or mommy's milks being sick without saying cancer specifically, but really giving him some agency to say, this is the week when mommy's had her medicine and mommy would love to cuddle with you on the couch, or these are the days daddy's going to put you to bed and mommy's going to go to bed early, but she'll be up to have breakfast with you, right? I think just using really appropriate language with the kids, and thinking about it in their context of just telling them what's going to happen so that they know what to expect. And we really sort of refrained from trying to introduce more new people to that person, right? We tried to keep our youngest, or our eldest at the time, our eldest routine as consistent as possible. With my youngest, going through chemo 10 days after giving birth and still having the baby in the NICU, like we knew that was going to be what happened, right? We knew what the care plan was. So we had a couple months to organize what the plan was going to be on the home front. And we opted to go with a baby nurse or a night nurse. And we found someone who was willing to move in with us for 3 months to basically be there round the clock. And we kind of worked out shifts. And I was, I had anticipatory mourning of like not being the primary caregiver of my baby, but finding somebody who I could trust, who could take on, enough hours in the day so that for the 4 or 6 hours that I was on point, I was super present and enjoying it. And our night nurse could help with the overnight shifts and the bottle feeds and things. And then we had her take the weekends off so that I could get that bonding time overnight and have the baby sleep next to my side of the bed on the weekend. So I didn't totally lose the experience, but I could control how much of that experience I opted into so I had time to rest and recover. Um, and this woman became such a lifeline for us in those 3 months that when I had a subsequent surgery a few months later, I called her up and I said, Miss Emily, please tell me that you'll come back for 2 weeks. I have to have another surgery. And, you made life, feasible for us in that period. And she came back. So, we're super lucky. She herself was a cancer survivor, so she just kind of knew how to step in and be a part of our life. And I would just say, if you're thinking of that avenue, right, some sort of live-in help or nursing type help for your child once they arrive, be very candid with the situation, with the hand that you've been dealt. People are really compassionate, and I think finding somebody that feels like a fit for your family is a really big boost to that juggling of that whole care situation with existing children, especially. Um, thank you.
Of course. And Jamie, I know you had a son as well while going through this. Do you have anything to add on that front?
Yes, I would say it was the logistics of life were incredibly difficult. So emotionally, we did well. We talked a lot about cancer. My mother-in-law had died of cancer about a year before I was diagnosed. So we talked a lot about it to let him know the differences, that not everybody dies. He learned a lot. He was about 2.5 years old. So we kept it simple, used a lot of Bright Spot Network's free books that they offer, super helpful in talking about cancer. And he's a curious kid anyway. So emotionally, we were doing pretty good. Logistically, it was so hard because um, there were days where I just couldn't get out of bed. So my husband had to do everything and still work. And I know he was exhausted, but he had to do it. There wasn't really, and then he was feeding me because I didn't want to eat. And he's like, "You're pregnant, you have to eat." So he held a lot. Once we had the baby, I feel like I was able to do more, even though I was still going through chemo. So that helped a lot. My parents live about 3 hours away, and my parents came from time to time, and they would spend the night, and my mom would stay up with the baby. But that wasn't every night. I tried to get a night doula, but they were all booked out. So by the time I knew I would want one, that wasn't an option. So thankfully, my mom gave us a little relief from time to time. But honestly, it was hard logistically. If I would have really liked help getting my child to daycare, that would have been really good help that I wasn't able to find. So if that's something you can offer people, just that alone would have made a huge difference for us.
Thank you. And Carissa, I know you have some questions from the participants.
I do.
Um,
Yes, and
Yay.
you guys, I feel like this could have been 2 hours because there's so much more I feel like we could get to, such rich discussion. And I appreciate you guys just being so forthcoming and sharing so much and a lot of really helpful information. So thank you. One question that I think is really great is about really like fear of recurrence and someone wondering how do you get to a place mentally where you feel at peace that it won't come back or at least managing that fear? And how do you approach your doctor about follow-up care, like requesting more frequent testing or monitoring for recurrence?
I'm happy to try on this one. It's a really important question and it's a really hard question. And we obviously have someone in the group with the reoccurrence. It changes based on the different stages of your journey. I think when you finish active treatment, there's a relief, and then there's, some hard feelings about not being in such active care. You're not going into the oncologist as often, and you transition into this period that I think is, a different form of a challenge. Suleika Jawad has a lovely book called Between Two Kingdoms that I would recommend reading. But ultimately, you're on a journey to just sort of manage your health in a slightly different way to someone who hasn't been through cancer for the long term. And depending on who you are as a person, I think just being informed, staying connected to survivors, developing like it's a new chapter of a relationship with your care team. But I think recurrence is a really hard one, and sometimes it spikes up around a cancer bursary. It kind of ebbs and flows. It will not be debilitating challenge every single day once you finish treatment, but it will ebb and flow, and you'll find ways to navigate it that work for you. I think just being vigilant about your care and building knowledge, which you do going through cancer. You suddenly have like all this language, vocabulary, and insight that can empower you and like really help you think holistically about your health in the long term. But it's a hard question. It's a hard topic. It gets easier with time.
I would add one perspective, which is talk to other people who are cancer patient survivors, because it's really easy to get in your own head. And much like the algorithms that send you down one path, like sometimes you need to pull yourself up to look at both sides of the potential outcomes. And so lean on this type of group that can help you balance both perspectives, because it is the tendency to spiral is there. And that's not a place you want to get stuck in if you can help it.
So true.
Yeah,
Thank you guys. Oh, Giselle, do you
I
want to say
think if
something?
I can add on just to that, because I've already went through that, right? So, and I remember I had asked this to Carissa during our support group, like, how can I not think about recurrence when I didn't have the recurrence back then? But I think one thing that I really can confirm, as the ladies has already said, is talking to survivors. And for me, like listening to success stories, because it really is hard, like mentally, emotionally, physically, the thought of possibly of it coming back. And when I went through that journey and actually heard that it came back, I broke down. My parents were there during the appointment, and they also had emotions because we thought we got rid of the ovarian cancer for good, and I just had to maintain the CLL. But unfortunately, yeah, it is back, and I have to go back to my new routine. I think that's one thing too, in terms of routine. Like once I achieved that remission phase, I try to go back to my routine prior to the cancer diagnosis. And then once you're in your cancer treatment phase, you have your new routine. And then after you beat it and, think that it's gone for good, you start a new routine. So I think one thing that I can, based on my experience, is that nothing's ever the same or standard through your journeys, through your cancer journey. You will have like all these ups and downs, but I think having your support system, hearing and connecting with cancer survivors, advocating for yourself, will not like will help you kind of focus on the present. I think that's what helped me, like really focus on the present. And I'm very, very humbled to be able to like connect with people and still share my story, take care of my daughter, and be with my parents and my family. So those are the things that have helped me with this reoccurrence.
Thank you, Giselle. I have another question. If folks are comfortable sharing, wondering how your diagnosis or treatment affected your bonding or attachment with your baby, and if so, what helped to support the connection?
I'd love to jump in here because that was my major concern through pregnancy. And I remember I worried about that constantly. And I hopped on a webinar one time, and there was somebody who had cancer during pregnancy. She was like 5 years out, and she told me that you'll still develop a bond, but you also get the bonus of your baby will probably also develop strong bonds with other people. So for me, it was my sister and my mom, especially. Um, my mom wouldn't have came and spent the night after me having a baby, where we just, as a family, that's not something we usually do. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't have cancer. So my mom would come and spend the night, or I'd go stay at their house, and she'd stay up with my daughter. And now their bond is just amazing. It's extra. It didn't take away from my bond with her. It was just an extra thing that we got that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise. So um, I really think babies know their mom. You're building a bond inside the stomach, outside. Even if you only get to spend a few hours a day with that baby, they know you're the mom. I think it's just natural. I think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I will say, as a first time mom, she was my one and only. I also worried about that a lot, and I think she and I are so deeply connected, like at a visceral level, for everything that we went through. I don't know if it's a soul connection or what, not to get too woo-woo, but I think much like what Jamie said, I wasn't too precious about who I handed her over to because within 3 weeks of her being born, I had to get back to chemo. And we have no family here. My family is, a continent away. So I literally handed her over to a friend's mom who said, I want to support you in this way. I'm retired and will stay home while you go to chemo. And so there she was, 5 weeks old about and post NICU and just left her with what was really kind of a stranger who's now become like a grandmother to her. So I do think it's not maybe as you pictured it, right? Cancer changes everything, but I do think it deepens and nurtures the connection in an unimaginable way and in a very positive way. At least that's been my experience.
Thank you both for that. Another question about navigating work and loss of ability to work. Wondering if anyone has anything more to add about how you navigated the resources and finances, and if you leaned on anything in particular to support possibly not working as much as you wanted to.
Yeah, I have. Oh, Lauren, I see
I
you.
was just gonna say I dropped a note in the chat.
I saw it. Thanks,
I
Lauren.
yeah, I was able to book and do a maternity leave and short-term disability for cancer. I think finding a social worker at your place of care to help you really navigate what's possible, because there's the employment lens, there's the kind of public health lens, there are options out there. I think the thing I would emphasize is to try to balance what you can do to prioritize your health versus finding other avenues, whether it's for to cover financials or getting outside help. I think I was able to go back to work part-time, and I did that for a really extended period while my daughter was still little, because I didn't have the capacity to go back full-time, and we adjusted our lifestyle accordingly. And I would just say that, you know, nothing is permanent. So whether you're making choices to dial up, dial down, explore other work options. I know, Nadia, you took some pretty big pivots after after treatment, but you know, nothing is permanent. No choice can't, is binding. So experiment to find what works for you and your family.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I definitely was a bit of a workaholic before I got cancer, and then I found it really challenging to not work, and it was the right thing for me. I had a leave expert who gave me her time and services for free. I don't know, Carissa, in terms of resources, but there are people who really understand disability leave and all the different types of leave. Like I don't have that part of my brain does not work well. She did all the math in spreadsheets. She gave me advice on my options because you do have two different types of leaves, and then it depends on your employer, if you're self-employed, if you work hourly, what type of work you do. That's an area where it's worth getting a little help just to think through all the different scenarios and options that you might have in terms of how you approach treatment. And then there are the different phases, right? Just it changes. You can also change that as you go through treatment. But that's a practical thing that I think is helpful to have as well.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I did drop in Cancer and Careers and Triage Cancer. They're two sort of like go-to about work protections options. So I really appreciate you all being here and sharing such amazing wisdom and stories with us. It's really, it's beautiful. I'm so grateful for all of you. Thank you for everyone who attended. We will send a follow-up email tomorrow with the recording and some of the resources and links that were shared. And as always, please just reach out if you have any questions or want more support in knowing how to get connected to resources and help. So thank you again for your time and be well, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.